into the elections of 2024 and beyond. Everything election is here on the Situation Room on City TV. You're welcome. My name is Umaru Sanda Amado, and I'm doing this with
Bernard Affle. Thank you, Sanda.
Bernard. It's been a good week generally. Politically, not very active, but slightly active.
No, but
has been busy
on the contrary, it's been active because you know we've been talking about Sin North, and there's been a back and forth between the opposition party and the EC over the candidature of the MPP presumptive candidate. Now there have been issues around the Supreme Court releasing the 36-page judgment. So there's been a bit of news there as well.
And indeed, there's been a running, if you like, battle between the Electoral Commission and the National Communications Officer of the NDC, a response for a response. We'll be doing all the analysis and more when we come back. Also, there's going to be a by-election in Asin North. It's a constituency in the central region. This is occasioned by the fact that the Supreme Court has nullified the election of James Citi'uation as Member of Parliament for the constituency in 2020. The NDC has decided to put him back on the ballot. The NPP decided to open it up for a contest. 2 persons went to the vote. And Bernard, is that good to say there was a shellacking?
It was a very clear victory for the person who won, almost 400, and the other person had about 150. So it was very clear who the party wanted.
And this is a person, and let's talk about the build-up. This is a person that the NDC communications officer had issue with. I mean,
well, I'm sure if we get that, I'll tell you why NDC has been troubled about Mr. Charles Kumi's candidature, because he's quite a popular person. But I think two interesting things have happened. So the previous by-election we discussed wasn't that much of an issue, because Kume was an MPP stronghold. Now, Asin North, as I said last week, is probably one of the best dipsticks you can have for the mood of the nation. And I say this because the Asin North constituency existed as a constituency on its own since we started voting this Fourth Republic from 96, 92. But from 2012, when Asin Central was carved out of it, it became almost a swing constituency. So it's almost like Tema, for those of you who live in Accra, is like Tema East.
Out of Tema.
So when you carve Tema Central out of Tema East, Tema Central is purely MPP. Asin Central, MPP wins it all the time. But Asin North is like Tema East now. It's very close. And it's changed hands about 3 times. That's one issue. Then the second issue has been the release of the Citi'uation case. Because the judgment was made, but the details have now been given.
Yeah.
And the minority in Parliament wanted to study the judgment before they would even approve of the incoming CJ. Yeah. So that tells you that they feel very strongly about, the NDC as a party feel strongly about the removal of Citi'uation. So they were even prepared to risk the approval of the CJ just to be sure that the reasoning of the justices of the Supreme Court favored them. So that's number 2. Then number 3, you have MPP primaries going on, and one of the 3 front runners is from Asin Central, which used to be Asin North.
Asin North.
All right.
So he was MP for Asin North, and then became Asin Central.
And then Asin Central when it was carved out. So you can say he took the safer seat.
Yeah.
Then so that's all of that is happening within the context of 18 months or so to a general election, which is why it's a big story.
So when you're in the Situation Room, all of these issues are on the table for discussion. We're going to pick them individually, analyze them for you, and help you make sense of the big stories that are emerging from Asin North specifically. Bernard, you did a show last night, Point of View, where you hosted 2 lawyers to discuss the judgment of the Supreme Court. The understanding I have is that the judges, when they make their decision, you can critique the judgment, even though you cannot attack them, which is what Kwesa tried to do, and he had to go and apologize. So what did you learn from these 2 lawyers that you hosted?
I think the Citi'uation case is interesting because it presented a test of the definition of the word allegiance. You know, if you want to qualify to run for an election in Ghana, there are things that qualify you and there are things that disqualify you. The things that qualify you is your nationality, your age, and then your soundness of mind. And Article 94 makes that very clear. But the two now talks about what disqualifies you. And the basic point is that if at the time that you are filing your processes for the election, you are found to owe allegiance to a country other than Ghana, you are disqualified. So Citi'uation qualifies on the basis of the first requirement: registered voter, Ghanaian citizenship because he has a Ghanaian passport or born in Ghana, and of course is above 21, is of a sound mind. The problem though is that as of the time he was filing his nomination papers to the EC, he had not finished renouncing his Canadian citizenship because he's a dual citizen. Our constitution originally created avenue for only Ghanaian citizens, but later on we created a dual citizenship rule. Now, the person who took the matter to court said that, look, this gentleman is a dual citizen of Ghana and Canada. That means he owes some allegiance to Canada. And so the matter before the court was, is Mr. Citi'uation, at the time he filed his nomination to the EC, was he disqualified on the basis that he had not renounced his Canadian citizenship? His argument is that, well, look, I have started the process. COVID-19 is the only reason why I hadn't gotten my certificate. I had sent all the documents. So the intention was to renounce. And therefore, it was only an administrative issue that the certificate had not come in. And indeed, by the time the election was held, I had received the certificate. So I was qualified. The gentleman went to court and says, no, the fact that you got the certificate after you filed is not enough. Because when Zaneto won the 2016 primaries for the NDC, the opponent took her to court that she was not a registered voter in Clotekoli. And Zaneto went to the Supreme Court and said, look, I have not yet filed my papers with the EC. This is just an internal process. So not being a registered voter in Clotekoli does not arise until I am filing my process. So the Supreme Court agreed with her and said, Ni Ashite, you are Russian. The lady has not yet gotten to the process of filing. So it is at the time of filing that we will know if you qualify or not. So now Zaneto's case was about eligibility based on being a registered voter. This court, because the Supreme Court decision anyway, this particular court relied on that judgment, the aspect of the judgment that said that eligibility can only be determined when you are filing
with the Electoral Commission.
Wonderful. And they are saying that at the time Citi'uation filed, he hadn't received the certificate.
So the Supreme Court came down to one issue, whether or not the filing was, or the renunciation was done on election day or on registration day. And so the Supreme Court holds that it is the time you register that matters, not necessarily the time you go to the polls.
No, let's be clear. It's the time you file. You use the word registration. I use it
okay, so file, yeah.
Because registration is also a I get what you're saying. So the Supreme Court is saying that when EC says we have open nominations and you submit your documents, that is filing based on Zaneto.
Yeah.
So when you file, everything must be kosher. Now, those who disagree with the Supreme Court say filing doesn't happen in a day. Because filing is, I send my documents to you. You check it and say, Mr. Sander, you say you are 26 years old. I don't see your birth certificate. Then you bring it. So it's a few days. And according to those who are defending Mr. Joshua, we are saying, look, by the time that process of checking was over, and before they actually now gazetted and said, Mr. Kwesi is a candidate, he had received the certificate. But the people who went to court says, no, you file when you submit, because filing is a declaration. When you got the documents, you didn't have the certificate. So at the time you filed, you were a dual citizen. And that means that you owe allegiance to Canada as well as Ghana, and therefore you are disqualified. The Supreme Court agreed with those people, which was why they declared that his election in December 2020 was null and void, and caused Parliament to expunge his name from the records, for which reason we have a by-election.
And the Speaker of Parliament was speaking today. He said that the expunging of the name, as has been ordered by the Supreme Court, is not clear. He is actually asking that the Supreme Court gives them clarity and direction on what to do, because the man has been there, he's taking part in all manner of activities. Now you say expunge. What does expunge mean? And who does the expunging? The Supreme Court said Parliament. So the Speaker says, the Supreme Court said Parliament should expunge his name. I am not Parliament. I am the Speaker. The rest of us, we are all together in Parliament.
One method we use. And the other question is that he was sworn in on 7th January into this Parliament. Mm-hmm. By reason of his being sworn in, the number of parliamentarians was 275. And votes were taken on the basis of that number. If you say we should expand his name from the records, are we saying that everything he has been involved in is nullified, and therefore everything we do, we must do it on the basis of 274? If you're going to do it that way, will that even affect the fact that the speaker was chosen
elected
on the basis of that number. So I think these are very interesting times for our arms of government, because we've already had issues in Parliament which the Supreme Court has determined. So the Parliament is the people who create the law. The judges are the ones who interpret the law. And these discourses, for those of us who are students of politics, are important to see how to chart a path between separation of powers. So it will be interesting to see whether the Supreme Court will cause some further and better particulars to be given, or because Parliament is a master of its own rules, they can say, our understanding of expunging just means his name is deleted from the Hansard and the record, but everything else done. Somebody could even go to the Supreme Court and say, look, now that you've expunged the man's name, I want to say that everything that Parliament has done with him in part, it's all kinds of interesting
so
things.
it's interesting. I mean, listening to especially the lawyers on the floor today, because the thing with Parliament is that they are the lawmakers and most of them are lawyers too. And so the lawyers were on their feet debating today. And the Speaker himself, a lawyer. So after everything, they could not have a heading. And so I don't know whether they're going to write. And he says he wants the Supreme Court to say that I am ordering you, the clerk, or I'm ordering you, the Speaker, to expunge. And he said he doesn't even want to say expunge means delete. He went ahead to...
Which is why I keep saying on other platforms that, you see, when we say we are practicing democracy, we need to understand what we are doing and understand who we are as a people. The type of democracy we've chosen has rules we are still learning. The way they dress, the law they use, the language they speak, we still don't understand it. So most of the time when we go to Parliament, we argue about procedure. So we have to accept that this democracy and the procedures must be streamlined to suit. For example, if there's a dispute among chiefs in your traditional area, there's a way they resolve it. Some of those things can be brought in to make it easier. But when everything has to do with law, we sometimes get into the realm of absurdities, which is what we are seeing. Be that as it may, I think we are all clear. We've agreed that a by-election is happening in 2.5 weeks. It's very clear that the Parliament has agreed that the man was not duly elected, so that bridge has been crossed. What is now left for Parliament to do is not really our business now. What our business now is what's going to happen in that election? What will it mean for the rest of the days of Parliament? Mind you, Parliament has 2 months. They opened on June 6th. First week of August, they are going home. So essentially, they have less than, even if they stretch it, 50 days. And they have over 63 bills to pass in those 60 days. In addition to MPP doing primaries for their presidential in August, there's all kinds of politicking going on. So there's a lot of distraction.
And the numbers are critical.
So this election is going to be important because once the person is voted on the 27th, between 28th of June and 6th of August, there will be a lot of important bills passed. So the political parties want an advantage to be able to influence those bills, which will be probably the last one before the MPP goes to their primaries, for which some of them will lose. And then you now have a new phase of Parliament being expected. So this has been, the stakes have been increased because it's almost brinkmanship time. And then also, because of the difficult economic situation, the political parties want to use this to prove in a swing seat that they are more popular, which is why people are calling on the EC and the police to make sure that this goes well so that it doesn't give us a bad foretaste for 2020.
So talking about calling on the EC, a few things that came up ahead of today and indeed ahead of the primaries, it has to do with someone transferring their vote from one constituency to another to be registered over there. Sami Gyamfi has been leading that charge. The Electoral Commission consistently replying to every statement. In fact, the Electoral Commission even an instance referred to the comments by Sami Gyamfi as allegations which are unfounded and said that it was running a transparent office and all of that. Summarize for us what that back and forth has been.
So essentially what's happening is that the election is not just the voting day. Election is pre-election. So pre-election is building expectation and managing possible outcomes. So in my personal view, Sami Gyamfi's comments about the judgment and all that he's been doing in relation to this candidate is part of the build-up. Because don't forget that the NDC did not hold a primary. They believe that Mr. Citi'uation was unfairly removed. He was fairly voted. So they are trying to bank on sympathy votes to basically say, you voted for this gentleman, he got a sizable majority in a swing constituency. He has not been allowed to represent you. So we are bringing him back, now that everybody knows he's qualified, to let MPP know that they cannot remove him. which is why they didn't hold the primary. Number two, there's already a criminal prosecution of this same person because some aspects of what happened in the case I described is construed by the government through the Attorney General as possibly being perjury. So that's a criminal case. NDC recognizes that there could be a criminal charge which could succeed against the Citi'uation, but they are still basically saying they are appealing to the emotion of the people,
the will of
the people's sense of justice that you voted for the guy is a Ghanaian citizen, and the people have removed him, so vote for him again. Good. Now, prior to the voting of Mr. Kumi, who I'll tell you who is right now, all the polls done by our partners in the region suggested that if there was going to be a by-election, the MP wasn't doing well because he wasn't having the time to do his work.
He was not even there.
But up until like parts of May, getting into June, it was quite clear that the sentiment was for him because the person he beat was not that popular. But the person MPP have chosen, some people say he wasn't even a full-blown MPP member, but he has been working in the constituency for the past 10 years for a foundation set up in the name of his mother. He's a mining engineer, but he's been doing social work in education and health for the past decade. So he's known and liked. So
he's not new to the constituency.
But he's not necessarily, people don't know him as an MPP guy.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Okay.
So the reason Sami Jemfi and co are going this route is that if they look at the MPP field against the Citi'uation, he was going to win. But this guy who has come in,
it's a problem child.
It's a guy who is popular, and he's run the MPP primary and he's won fairly. Okay, so they are trying to throw that in to say that this guy was not really an MPP guy, right? And hopefully they feel it would cause some more unrest in MPP. Possibly those who lost will be aggrieved, and it will affect the voters in some way. But following the selection of Kumi, the analysts are saying that the dynamics are not as straightforward anymore.
Okay.
And it actually appears that he may be favored to win.
I see.
Which is why you should understand the NDC's agitation against his candidature.
Okay.
Because if somebody says, do you fear yourself? Somebody is doing an internal primary. Let the person be presented before you start criticizing. Why are you criticizing another party's internal primaries? It's because the calculation has been made that with this guy, the Citi'uation's path back to parliament is not as straightforward as any other MPP member.
This is the Situation Room on Citi TV. So that's a precursor to the discussion we are having. James Citi'uation, maybe if you like, was a very comfortable candidate until the elections of Tuesday by the New Patriotic Party, which are settled on this gentleman, Charles Kumi. So why is he a big problem or even a bigger problem for the NDC? When we come back, we'll talk about that.
Is the neighborhood I'm having my twins.
The very reason why I took it for us. See, the price is very good and it's spacious to contain all of us.
Alphabet City. Now I'm a landlord. I don't pay rent. And my Airbnb business is booming.
To me, Pamini, bank and I'm not Alphabet City. The pension pay me 20%. The payment plan, I want to share my just very smooth.
This is a healthy place to raise our families and creating peace. Come on, be my neighbor.
Alphabet City, the ABC of Home Sweet Home.
Alphabet City is a classy and peaceful gated community in Sakomono. We have 24/7 top-notch security and high-quality access roads. We have 3 bedrooms and 2 washrooms, 3 bedrooms and 3 washrooms with boys' quarters. We have 3 bedrooms and 4 washrooms. We have 2 bedrooms and 2 washrooms, all with beautiful kitchens and kitchenettes. Call Alphabet City on 0240-111119 or 050-44-99999. Alphabet City, the ABC of Home Sweet Home.
The Situation Room on City TV is focusing on the Asin North constituency, a constituency that is very crucial. In fact, Bernard describes it as the election that will be a dipstick ahead of election 2024. It will be a test case or a touchstone of the general election, at least from the perspectives of the analysis that have been done so far, because it is a simpler and better constituency to use, because you can describe it as a swing constituency. Kumewu may not be that good a test case for an election. So we have all eyes fixed on that constituency, but we're going to now do a candidate by candidate analysis. Before then, though, the constituency itself, what is the nomenclature or the character of that constituency? Bernard has been studying that. So talk to us about Asin North, ethnicity,
let me just,
location.
my general opinion is that all elections are local. So you can't look at the result of an election and say a constituency is MPP or NDC or CPP. Let me give you an example. Domi Kwabenya has voted for the MPP since 1992. But anybody who lives in Domi Kwabenya will tell you that there are parts of Domi Kwabenya that always vote for another party apart from MPP. So, for example, Taifa, Tantra Hill, Kwabenya will vote for MPP, Domi. Agbogba, parts of Hacho, Aboko will vote for NDC. So the devil is in the detail.
Yeah.
So if you create a new constituency out of Domi Kwabenya,
gerrymandering, if you do
you
that,
could have NDC win it because they get 40% in the last election. But Domi Kwabenya gives MPP a big margin.
Yeah.
So when a constituency is split, it changes the dynamics of the constituency. I say the same thing for Tema. You can say the same about Shaiman. All right. So let's talk about Tema. Tema, it was just two constituencies. When Tema Central was carved out of Tema to become Tema East and Tema Central, Tema East became very dicey.
Yeah.
But Tema Central almost always goes to MPP 60-40. This constituency that we are in right now, what do you call it? Okaikwe Central. Okaikwe North is always going to vote for MPP until the recent 2020 election. Good. This particular one is Okaikwe Central, carved out of the two, which MPP wins.
Yeah.
But it's created some space for NDC down south. Okaikwe South also is MPP. Yeah. But once you create a new constituency, that's the same thing with Asin. So in 1996, 92 and 96, there were only two Asin constituencies, Asin North and Asin South. Interestingly, of course, in 96, NDC was very strong. So NDC won Asin North in 96, as they did in for Asin South.
But they don't win Asin South.
They won both.
The NDC won both Asins. Okay.
Good. Then in the year 2000, Kennedy Japan appears in Asin North, and Dominophobia appears in Asin South.
Took the two constituencies.
Both of them won by a factor of 60-40. Right? A lot of people say 96, maybe MPP. You know, 92, they boycotted the election.
Yeah.
96, parliamentary, they were not that sure. They are the majority. But 2000 was the election they really came. Kennedy Japan came into Asin North, and Dominophobia came in Asin South. Kennedy got close to 60%. Phobia also got close to 60%. 2004, both men consolidated. Kennedy won by a bigger margin, as did Phobia. Phobia was Environment Minister under Kufuor.
Professor Dominic Phobia.
He remarried recently.
Yeah. I didn't know you would mention that.
2008, Kennedy Agyapong maintains for the third time Asin North. Phobia maintains for the third time Asin South. All right, and I'll tell you what's the difference between the two Asins. 2012 election, there are new constituencies created. Asin Central is carved out predominantly from Asin North.
Asin North.
Asin South remains Asin South. Phobia wins it again, Asin South.
2012.
Yes. 2012, Kennedy now wins Asin Central, which is the first time.
So he moved.
So Asin Central is now Asin Fosu, the capital of Asin district. Asin North now has places like Asin Breku. NDC wins it. So you see, you split it. MPP gets their Kennedy still in parliament, but there's now a new.
And it was created when? It was created 2012 or 2016?
2012. So Samuel Ambre wins it in 2012. But this is the catch. He won 51-44. So it wasn't such a big margin.
Yeah.
Kennedy had been winning it from like 60-40.
Yeah.
He still wins Asin Central comfortably. But now with the new Asin North constituency of 2012, it's a much closer race. The guy who wins it is called Mr. Abre. All right?
So he becomes the NDC's first MP for that area.
51 since 1996. Because 96 was the last time NDC won it.
Yes.
51-44 for MPP. 2016, MPP takes it back. and MPP gets 56%, NDC comes down to 40%.
So then MPP now takes all the Asin constituencies in 2016.
Wonderful. In 2016 as well, Dominic Fobi bows out to John Intim Fojo, who continues the MPP's strength in Asin South.
Asin South. Reverend Intim Fojo.
Yes. Kennedy also continues in Asin Central. So Kennedy has been in parliament from 2000. He's won every election he's been taking part in, right? But in 2016, the MPP's Abena Druwa Mensah beats this Samuel Ambry guy. And he gets, and it's a massive swing. He had 51% in 2012. MPP had 44%. In 2016, MPP gets 56. And the NDC guy drops. All right? I'll show you his picture soon. The Samuel Ambry gentleman. All right?
39%, 57%.
There you go. This is Samuel Ambry. Yeah, so he wins in 2012, of course, after the new consensus was created. But then,
2016,
MPP
takes
it back. So now, Citi'uation then comes in 2020, and he takes it back for NDC.
So he continues.
He goes to, no, check
So
this
the
out.
constituency is now flipping.
Yes. So NDC had 51 in 2012, NPP had 44. 2016, NPP comes to 56, NDC comes down to 39. 2020, Citi'uation comes in, NPP goes back to 55.
So this is not a constituency that NDC can say it is comfortable in.
No.
Because even the win,
No.
the win by Druwa was big the last time.
Yeah. So she had 56, NDC had 40. Citi'uation comes in, gets 55, NPP goes down to 40. So people are losing by 10 percentage points.
But she is not in the contest now. We'll talk about that again because that would also mean something else.
So the point is that you can say that since 2012, Asin North has become an unpredictable.
Anadenta.
And what makes it even interesting is that it's not like, there are some constituencies like Ablekuma Central where the main parties will get 49, 49 or 51, 48.
And then
this is like 51, 44. Then 44 jumps to 55. Then 51 comes down to 39. And then 39 goes to 55. So it's almost like, and this is my feeling.
The flip is big.
It's candidate specific. It's candidate specific because when you compare to presidential, the presidential is more balanced. So the candidates are influential. So NDC gains 16% with Citi'uation. So Citi'uation is important to NDC. So it comes from 39, his predecessor, and moves to 55. Right? So the reason NDC would say we don't want this guy to go is that he's coming to give us a very big advantage here.
What is this?
So this is the net gain and loss. So if we take 2016
for parliamentary or presidential? Parliamentary.
Parliamentary.
Okay.
So what we are saying is that Citi'uation, by coming in 2020, gave the NDC plus 16%.
So it's like there's a 10 to 15% voter group that decides to change it from one side to another.
Our analysis suggests that it is very candidate sensitive. Which is why with Charles Opoku's entry into the race has riled the NDC. Because the way we see the voting pattern there, if they like the candidate, they will vote for the person massively.
So this is a history of the constituency.
Yes.
Let's talk about the candidates now.
Wonderful. So
NPP went to the polls with 2 people, and the Charles Opoku does a great job defeating his opponent.
Yes.
And so he's the leader of the party now. So this is the Abna Druwa lady who...
Yes. So I just wanted to go back.
Okay.
I just want to go back to what you were saying.
All right.
So who are the main people here?
Are you done with the character of the constituency?
I'll come back to it. Just
Okay.
give me a second.
Okay.
So a couple of things you should know. James Citi'uation and Charles Opoku are from the same town.
Okay.
So that's the other issue here. So
Okay.
it tells you why NDC will be agitated because...
Asim Breku.
Yes. And in Ghana, where you are from is very important. Because you can go to a town. We are all from the same hometown. But because you are from this village and from that village, they put in my village to vote for me. They put in your village to vote for you. So to get Charles Opoku, also from Asim Breku, right? an engineer with Goldfields Ghana, founder of the Akosia Bako Foundation. Citi'uation is also a social worker. So the people who work in the constituency as philanthropists, they do development projects, are known and liked. Kennedy Japan is the MP for Asin North, for God's sake.
For Central.
So you need to be somebody who gives.
Yeah.
So his social worker credentials, right? He used to do Toronto, district manager for City of Toronto Employment and Social Services. He understands social work.
So
He knows how to do projects. He knows how to reach out to different communities, constituencies of people, women, children. This is the advantage he had, which the NDC really believed would help him win, which is why he won in 2020. So NPP has found a guy who has also been working there for 10 years. And he's not been in politics. He's not working there. He didn't come up and say, I want to win.
To diffuse the strength of Citi'uation.
He's from the same town. So the chiefs don't know what to do. He worked at Goldfields, right, as an engineer. And then he's been working in this foundation for a decade. And they won't know him.
Interesting.
So they basically said, what NDC brought in 2020, we have a better version of it in this guy. Wow. Which is why I'm saying that this has changed the equation. If they had brought back the lady, where is her photo? I don't know if I have her here.
I've not drew her. And she did well, but...
Yeah, I think Citi'uation may have won because they would basically say, it's like Amase in what you call it. We voted for the guy, and you've got to remove him. So we won't agree to whatever you do. But with this man, it's a different equation. All right? And this is the makeup of the place.
The main towns.
Yes. So the Asin North capital before it was split was Asin Fosu. All right? And Asin South was a place called Citi'uation Chichire. But since the split, Asin Central is still Asin Fosu. All right? But the two largest towns are now Asin Breku and Asin Praso. All
and
right?
the capital is Asin Breku.
Yes.
And the electoral areas 18.
18. 99 polling stations.
The polling stations are small, aren't they? It means that the constituency is not that big.
41,000 voters.
Yeah, it's not that big.
It's not a very big constituency.
Yeah.
NDC tends to do well in Asin Praso, which is on the River Pra. Okay. All right. And then Asin Breku and Asin Akomfidie is where MPP seems to do. What I need to tell you about Asin Fosu is that in the history we did with Kweku Dakrankra, Asin has always been a buffer zone between Fanti and Asante authenticity. And I'll explain it. So usually when you are coming from the Ashanti region, the central region, you cross the River Pra in the Asin area. And once you get to the Asin area, you know you are no longer Ashanti. But a lot of Ashanti migrants in the Asin area. So and there's also, once you cross Asin, you are in Fanti land. Because Chifu Atimokwa is below, Ejumako Inyambisia is on the right. All right, and then, what's Mr. Adams' hometown? I forget. Mr. Adams' hometown is on the south.
Okay.
It's called...
is it Abra Sebo or Kwamakesi?
Wonderful. Abra Dunkwa.
Okay.
So, at the bottom of the Asin area is Fanti communities, Ahabemu Fantifo, right? Not the coastal Fantis. And then on the top of it is the Ashanti places.
So they are the boundary.
Good. So the strongholds have to be understood from migrant populations as well. So an Asin person is there are a group of people who are Asins, but there's a lot of Ashanti influence. And there's also some Fanti remnants within the area.
Okay.
Do you understand? So which is why you will see Asante type names in the Asin area. And you also see typical Fanti names, like Citi'uation in the area. But you also see Anopoku, in Tim Fojuo. So they are very interesting mix of people. The two groups, again, historically, the two groups didn't trust their Asins. Because they are like the
middlemen.
Yes. So
for barter trade and
you have to. So they are very astute and very savvy, right? So there are lots of. So I'm just saying that it's a nice historical story about Asante-Fanti rivalry and Asin buffer zone
in the middle,
for those who like their history.
Okay.
Second point I need to make is when you come down south to Asin Manso, historically it's one of the most important places in Ghana's history to the diasporas.
For the slave trade.
Every time we go to the Heritage Caravan, the last junction the slaves went through before they walked to Elmina and Cape Coast, they took a ritual bath or a final bath at the Asin Praso River, which is in Asin South. So if you actually go to the Asin Slave River, you will see insignia about good chiefs and bad chiefs. They have a strong sense of history. They know who they are. It's a place with a lot of history, the Asin area. And it's also a nice mix of places. Last fun fact, they had a very good football team called Soccer Missionaries. And I remember in the early 90s, they won the FA Cup. And the guy who scored the goal, his penalty tore the net. I don't think you were born.
I was not
in the
born.
early 90s. So you can ask anybody who knows football about Soccer Missionaries in Asin Fosu. They were very popular. So if Hasok was going to play in Asin Fosu, it was very a difficult match. Because they are very tribal. They like themselves. And Missionaries was a good team. They won the FA Cup. I think it was 91 or 92.
I see.
So that's a history for you.
Let's share the history. This is Situation Room on City TV. Bernard just trying to help you make sense of the constituency, how it looks like, the ethnic makeup, even the trends in terms of elections in the past. How does it look? So clearly, no party is comfortable in Asin North. The numbers, Bernard will take you through the numbers again. And Bernard, what else are we adding when we come
back? Yes, just quickly. So on the south of Asin, there are two Asin constituencies. On the south, you have Ejumako in Janisiam, Kasiel, Atufosen. Then Ebra Asebu Kwamankese. I think
Felix Kwachu is hoping to be MP there.
Then Chifu
Atimokwa.
Chifu Lower Dentra. Chifu Lower Dentra is on the south. Chifu Atimokwa is on the west. Esikuma Dobin Brakwa is on the east. All right? And then and then New Ibrahim is on the northeast. So Esikuma Dobin Brakwa, please appeal for it.
Yeah.
Historically,
MPP.
A commercial town. MPP does very well there. Ejumako, Council has made strong for NDC, even though its margins are not that big. Infantiman is not too far away. Then you have Eburase Kwamankese, which MPP won in the last election.
By a very slim margin.
Chifu Lower Dentra as well, which NDC has been winning. And then Chifu Atimokwa as well. So it's like a melting pot of many things.
But it's a rural constituency, isn't it?
No, they are okay. In comparison to Asin Central, Asin North is more rural than Asin Central.
So what they did with Asin Central is what was done in Amasama and Trobu, sort
Wonderful.
of. So the townships now become central, and Amasaman. Okay, but Amasaman is also growing.
So you can
now,
say that 15 years ago,
the
more urbanized parts of that whole area became Trobu, Ofanko, Tantra.
Yeah.
And the more rural parts
became Amasaman.
But now it's changed.
Now it's changed. Yes. This is Situation Room on City TV. We'll be back with more. Please stay with us.
If you're a whiz kid that collects straight A's in your sleep, a brainy brains that aces quizzes without even trying, or a clever clogs that knows just about everything, then there's one more battle you have to win. The Literacy Challenge. The nationwide search for the best junior high student is on. Think it could be you going home with 10,000 Ghana cedis and a glitzy trophy? Then, in not less than 600 words, write a story that ends with the following statement. The happiest people do not have the best of everything, they make the best of everything they have. Stories should be written in your own handwriting with the deadline of Saturday, the 15th of July 2023 in mind. Submissions must include an endorsement by a parent or guardian and their full contact details. And once you're done, shoot off your entries to the front desk of City TV or City FM. Or you can send entries to PO Box GP 14123 Accra Central. For more inquiries, call 0558 973 973. The Literacy Challenge 2023 is powered by City TV, supported by City FM, and is sponsored by the Ghana National Gas Company and Ribby Crunchy Biscuits by M4 Foods.
This is the Situation Room on City TV. My name is Umaru Sandamari here with Bernard Avle. We are focusing on the Asin North constituency of the Central Region. We have done the traditional makeup of the constituency, the historical makeup of the constituency. We've done even the geographical status of the constituency. But let's look again at the surrounding constituencies, because it's a constituency that did not exist in name. Well, it existed in name, but had some part of it carved out in 2012. So we have Asin North now. The neighbors being Asin Central and then a few other
Asin South.
Let's look at the influence of the... Okay, before we do that, let's do the numbers and just before we talk about them.
So the most important thing we need to remember about this constituency is that since 2012, it swung. In 2012, when it was created, NDC won 51-44. In 2016, MPP won 56-39. And when Citi'uation comes in, he wins it 55-48. So this is the first thing to remember, that Citi'uation gave MDC a big lift.
Is that the biggest so far? In 2012, what was the...
No, in 2012, MPP even did better. MPP had 50. In 2012, MPP had 50. So in 2016,
yes.
In 2016, MPP had 57. NDC had 39. This is the incumbent, Samuel Ambre. So this guy won in 2012.
Okay.
And when he won, he had 51%.
So he didn't do as well. So the best performance would have been 2016.
Yes. So 2016...
Even better than Citi'uation.
So 2016 is so far, Abno Druwa Mensa. He almost got 60%. This is Kennedy Japan levels.
Wow.
So for Citi'uation to come in 2020 and bring her down from 57 to 44 and move from 39 to 55, very significant. So we say he gained 16% for the NDC. She lost 12%. So that's why the NDC stayed with him throughout.
So the Citi'uation...
And he hasn't really had the chance to work.
That's true.
Because later on, we saw a poll in the constituency somewhere in April where people were like, they don't know. Like he had not really been given a chance because of all the court cases.
I'll let you talk about polls, but let's look at the influence of the neighboring constituencies on this constituency. The influence of Kennedy Japan. How did he do...
Good question.
Compared to these guys?
All right, so I've already shown you this.
Yes.
All right, this is Asin North 2012, the first time it was created. This is the gentleman who won for the NDC, who then lost. Now, 2008, so from 2000 to 2008, it was one constituency. Kennedy Japan, of course, had won it in the year 2000. Kennedy had 56% of the votes. The NDC had 39. 2004, he went to 58. NDC had 36. So in 2008, he came down from 58 to 55. And then NDC improved from 39 to 43. So NDC, you can say this is the best decision against Kennedy prior to the constituency being split.
But Kennedy's best performance was 2000.
Kennedy's best performance when it was one constituency was 2004.
2004.
58%.
And it comes down to 55. So he loses by 3.
And then in 2012, Kennedy now runs for just Asin Central, where he gets 54%. Okay. So it's roughly the same.
Okay.
But in 2016, Kennedy gets 62%.
2016?
Yes.
That was when the whole change happened.
Yes. And then 2020, he gets 57. So Kennedy has never gone below 55 in any of the Asin constituencies. So he's comfortable. He always gets at least 10% gap over his next person. So he is very influential. So for example, yes, 2004, 59, 37, big gap.
Deal.
All right. 2000, 57, 40. So he's getting 15 to 20. He's very strong in the area. Okay. Then 96 was prior to Kennedy's coming. It was one constituency.
So he came to defeat the NDC's Florence Kumi.
Yes.
And then took over.
Took over from 2000. Yes. So when you go to, you are right. So he beat the incumbent. And he beat the incumbent. I mean, think about it.
This is a big flip.
MPP is doing 35.
Yeah.
NDC is doing 63.
And this was Kwabena Kakari Appel.
Yes. And
he
then
didn't do as well.
And then you have
2000.
Kennedy Japan lands and flips it from 36 to 57.
And drops
the
Florence
income.
from...
Yes.
That's crazy.
Which is really the beginning of the story of Kennedy. So for 23 years, he's become the main man there.
Yeah, the central region as a block is seen as a swing region.
Yes.
I mean, there are some constituencies that have always been permanent, like the Asin Central so far.
Yes.
But to think that NDC has been in the Asin North generally when he had Central, had a 63% vote, even in the 96 area, that's significant.
I keep telling you that the reason why Asin is interesting is that it's candidate specific.
So it's not.
So the person standing is as important as the party.
Not the party, okay.
Right?
Okay.
That's why this conversation about Citi'uation and Charles Opoku is big.
It would be interesting to compare for me how the flag bearers did in 2020.
I don't have all of that here,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, candidates move along with they help their flag bearers. So candidates help their flag bearers. So if a candidate is good for a party, they tend to drive up the numbers. So Mahama also won in 2020.
With Citi'uation.
Yes, so when there's a good candidate, they pull along the presidential candidate.
Okay.
But I think the politics there is very local. So if you are strong as a candidate and they like you, they'll vote for your president.
Talking about strength of candidates, so Kennedy Japan has an influence over all the three constituencies to appear.
Absolutely. There was a poll that was done in April by Global Info Analytics, just asking who they thought would better manage the economy. I don't know if I have it on this slide. But overwhelmingly, about 68% of the voters said Kennedy Japan before, I think, Bahama
And these are voters where?
and Alan.
These are voters in all the three?
In the Asin area. They were asked who they thought was best placed to replace. I think the question had been asked about how the economy was doing. They said the economy was not doing well. And then they said, who do you think is best placed to manage the economy? And he was the overwhelming favorite. They even did a check between him and Bahama. He got the vote. Him and Bahumia, he got him. Basically, he is the most popular presidential candidate in the...
So in this election, he would want to prove his control over that because he needs to have a block that he has, a block that he controls to prove a point. So his own backyard.
I won't use the word control, I use the word influence.
Okay.
Because if somebody gets 57 in a parliamentary election, he's been there for 20 years,
Yeah.
people are also tired.
Yeah.
So you can say that on a national scale, people know him and there's name recognition. And again, it was a small sample size. So control is not right because Domophobia has been MP from 2000 to 2012. Right? He's also been there. In Timfojo, interestingly, in the 2020 election for Asin South, he won by the skin of his teeth. So in 2016, Timfojo had 59%, NDC had 39%. So that was like a 20% gap. In 2020, Timfojo came down to 39%. And then NDC got 36%. There was an independent guy who got substantial votes.
So Asin South behaves like Asin North there. Maybe Central is the only maybe
Yes.
safe one, if you like.
No,
so this,
Asin South is still MPP.
Okay.
Because
but-
even though...
So is a candidate. It's done.
Yes.
Is
So Asin
Reverend
South,
Timfojo.
yes. So
Okay.
I think in Timfojo...
This Professor Dominic Phoebe,
Yes.
Minister for Education, a number of other portfolios in the Kufuor government.
Yes.
Okay. What do you have for me next?
So, yeah, and then, of course...
So this is a new MP.
Yes,
this is
so he
incumbent.
is Deputy Minister for Education
Deputy
now.
Minister of Education.
One of the
Eight
eight LGBTQ
members of parliament, private MPs.
who the Christians and Muslims say we should vote for them.
Yeah,
He is a pastor.
He's a pastor.
And interesting.
He's only MPP. on
Yes,
the
that's what I'm
list.
saying. He's the only MP
Yeah.
in that Samuel George group. So there you have it. Yeah, I was going to just show you this poll in 20. What do you call it? April. People are not really happy with their MP.
So which MP was this? In which constituency
This
is
is
this?
Citi'uation.
Okay.
Asin North.
At that time, he was barred from.
Yes. So he was having all these problems.
Yeah.
So I think they had already barred him.
Yeah, and they said, the question was what? How would
How
you
would you rate
rate?
the performance of your MP? 26% said poor, 9% said average, 19% said good, 21% said very poor, 15% no opinion, 7% very good.
What does that mean? Even though he was not active, let's take out everything that's happening to him in the courts. What does this mean to him if he were a regular MP?
It means that he's in trouble. It's a disgruntled constituency.
28%
Yes.
of the people in his constituency
Yeah.
not happy with him.
In that poll in April.
And if you
But the
add,
reason I'm a bit careful here is that because
he was not active and
there have been so many changes in the court issue
Yeah.
between April and June, I'm very sure there was a recency bias that affected this.
I'm trying to put very good and average together to give him positive and put very poor and poor
No,
together.
but this is not good.
It doesn't look good.
This is not good.
Doesn't look
This is not
good.
good. The only way he would he would have, if you look at the numbers, if he was pitched against any incumbent MPP, then you would say that he does well. But once there's an alternative, who's a fresh face, who does the kind of things he does, then the equation changes.
Bernard, because this is a graph, people will be looking at it and say, oh, this is a recent poll. They may use this to interpret
We'll
it.
we'll release a poll on the 23rd. So there's a poll we're working on now, which will be out on the 23rd, which will give you the current status now that we know that Opoku is there.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to use this to tell you a few stories. So, for example, how do you rate the performance of your MP? Poor and all of that. Let me just show you one last thing before we go. How likely are you to vote for your current MP if he or she stands again in 2024? Again, this is April. Unlikely 40%, neutral 23%, likely 21%, very unlikely 11%. So about half.
So this one is also not good.
Not good. Unlikely is 40%, neutral is 23%. Usually neutral could mean anything.
But you hold the view that this notwithstanding, the happenings in Parliament, in the courts, may have a factor. People may consider that. So this should not be considered as sacrosanct. This should not be what people think about going to. So we should wait for the next poll to make a proper determination.
There's a poll coming. There's a poll coming in the week of the election, and we will then.
And this is a poll by who?
Global Info Analytics.
Okay.
Which has a bigger sample size.
Okay.
Which will target all the main electoral areas within the constituency, the 18. So that will give us a fairer reflection. This was part of a bigger, this is what they call it was a poll around the sentiments about the country, about the president. So lots of questions were asked. And then you distilled
this one out of
the answer. The last point was, in the upcoming parliamentary elections, which candidate are you likely to vote for? Again, MPP 44, NDC 28. This was again in April. Unsure. So Sanda, between now and 27th June, all eyes will be on Asin North. Already, some projects have started, similar to Kumewu. In fact, during the newspaper review 2 days ago, Kumewu people are saying the road projects have slowed down. Right? And some are even alleging that the contractors have moved to Asin North.
Money finished, eye clear.
We don't know. But look, the NDC's position with the EC is not good signal for people watching, because, I mean, if you read the EC's press statement, at the final one addressed as Asami Jemfi, it was in very, I mean, you don't expect those, like, for example,
it was not diplomatic.
Yeah, like, you should leave them, you should go and campaign and that kind of thing. I'm not happy with that. It suggests like there's this enmity between the NDC and the EC, which we didn't see in the Kumewu.
So the language that was used by the Electoral Commission is not the language you would expect from a commission like this.
Yes.
At best, keep quiet.
Yes.
But
So
to engage in a banter,
it's not even a banter. It's more like language you use against somebody you are tired of. So it's my concern is that, you know, by-elections usually end up violently. And there's so much at stake here because the NDC feels aggrieved that their legitimately voted candidate has not been allowed.
And they know they believe they own that constituency now.
So they've criticized the judgment, they've criticized the choice of Opoku, they've criticized the EC. Okay, so some could say they're already preparing your mind for what could happen. Because don't forget, the MPP have said to us, we interviewed the MPP last week, I think it was your program, or big issue, where they said they had been the head of the legal team or the electoral team. I forget the name. He said, Gary Nimaku.
Yeah.
He says, even before the case was determined, they had been working on the ground. I think it was Gary Nimaku. He said, yes, he said, even before, on the big issue, even before the matter was determined, they had been working. So, don't forget that.
Hopeful that things would...
I mean, Sanda, the parliament has been difficult because you've had 136 with an independent.
Yeah.
It's not giving the MPP wiggle room at all.
Yeah.
And there have been 3 cases. Techiman South was NDC feeling aggrieved.
Yeah.
They lost that.
Yeah.
Jomoro was MPP feeling aggrieved. They lost that.
Yeah.
So 1-1.
1-1.
So the only one that has gone I mean, the one that's going to tilt the scale is this one.
So everything is...
It's almost like everything depends on this one, which is why when things like this happen, the build up to the election, IPAC and those kinds of things should be in motion, because if you are having the opposition party criticize the EC, indeed there was an interview today with some former NDC vice chair who says that the EC is doing the work for the MPP. You don't want to hear that kind of language, you know, and the MPP haven't really been talking.
So we've seen what happened in Ayawaso West, and forgive me for reminding us, but again, that's always what we look at and say we do not want something like that coming up. It seems the stakes are very high in Asin North.
Yes.
Everybody believes that winning that constituency means something for them, even if not for 2024, for the continuance of the parliament as it currently is.
Yes.
NDC would insist that it needs that constituency, because if it doesn't, then it becomes a minority group. For now, we don't have a minority party in parliament. It's 137,
Yes.
137.
Yes.
Both are the same,
But because the independent candidates...
So they have a majority group, but not a majority party.
Yes.
So this would be the NPP's chance to become a majority party if they win this seat, and NDC's chance to continue to remain with the status quo. So it's really indeed a big one. And so Peace Council, please, beyond speaking about Charles Ajenasari and Nogokpo, kindly also focus on Asin North for us, because I don't know, am I being alarmist by asking Peace Council to be involved in this?
I think you are right, because if you listen to the language of the NDC and the EC, it doesn't bode well. And because so much hangs on this, you are very right in saying there should be conversations around even our public comments, so it does not incite violence or create trouble. So you are right if you say the Peace Council should get involved. You are right if you say the police should be on the alert. You are right if you say civil society should make sure that the election is fairly held, so that whoever wins it cleanly.
That's a very good word of advice from Bernard Kokuavle. He's not from the north. He's from the southeast of Ghana. That will be it for the City Newsroom. Okay, forgive me. Situation Room on City TV. My name is Umaru Sandamado. I did this with Bernard Avle. We'll be back again on Thursday at 3 p.m. on City TV. Thank you for being with us.